What's happening? It's Tommy with Crawler Conceptz. Today we're going to do an installation of a body mount tire carrier on this 2011 Jeep JK. Hey guys, when you receive your body mount tire carrier, these are the parts that you should expect to find in the box. First, you've got your main carrier. You've got the plate that mounts to the tailgate, the two hinges, the bracket that mounts to the carrier will then mount to this bracket, which attaches to the wheel, and it should have 3 lug studs and 3 lug nuts, and a plastic bag that's been compartmentalized with your hind that attaches the carrier to the tailgate, a bushing that mounts to the plate that's on the tailgate, and 2 bolts with 2 bushings that go into the hinge points of the carrier itself. But again, those are the parts you should expect to find when you order body mount tire carrier from Crawler Conceptz. Thanks guys. Hey guys, what's happening? It's Tommy with Crawler Conceptz. Today we're going to do an installation of a body mount tire carrier. I've got Kevin Larson with us. He's your Florida rep. We're going to go ahead and get started with this thing. First step you need to do when you're installing this carrier is you need to prep the tailgate by removing all the factory components that you're not going to reuse. So the factory tire carrier, that needs to come off, and then the vent that's inside, along with the plastic caps that are on the hinges. To remove the tire carrier, the 13mm bolts, they come right off, and then we want to remove these plastic caps. So to get these caps started, just take a screwdriver, stick it in there, and then push that plastic cap towards the driver's side of the Jeep, and they come right off, super easy. And then these little square caps that are around the hinges, you just lift up on one of the corners and start working it off. And she'll come right off there, it's really easy. All right, once you get that off, you want to remove the hinges. And again, it's a 13mm on the tailgate, and then Torx 50 bits that are holding the actual hinge to the body of the Jeep. When you get to this step, you want to make sure that you only remove one hinge at a time. That way, the other hinge that's left on the Jeep is maintaining the alignment of the tailgate, so you don't have to try to figure all that back out when you go to install everything back to the Jeep. So we'll go ahead and remove the hinges, and once we get the hinges removed, we're going to cut the pin that holds the hinges together. So anyway, we'll get with you guys on that in just a second. Hey guys, we're back, and now we've got the factory hinge off the Jeep. The next step is we have to separate the 2 parts of the hinges. We're going to retain the longer part that connects to the tailgate, and we're not going to reuse the smaller part that actually connects to the body of the Jeep. To do that, you want to cut this pin. You can use a Dremel with a cutoff tool, or a 4.5-inch angle grinder with a cutoff wheel, or however you need to do, just cut this. Some of you guys might want to tape this up, just if you're worried about scratching it up or anything like that, but we're going to be careful, and we're just going to cut this pin, and as soon as we get that pin apart, these 2 pieces of hinge will separate. I'm going to go ahead and let Kevin cut this just to show you how easy it is. All right, cool, great job, Kevin. That's really simple, guys. See how easy that was? We've got that cut. So once we get it cut, you might, because of the paint and the bushings and stuff that are in there, you might need something to kind of help you wedge it apart, to kind of get this pin or to drive it out. But we'll go ahead and do that, and we'll get right back to you. Welcome back. Kevin went ahead and cut the other pin and installed the other hinge on the tailgate. So we've got both of the Crawler Conceptz hinges that are going to hold the tire carrier on the Jeep, and we're all set there. The next step is we're going to put the plate that tethers the tailgate to the carrier. We're going to go ahead and install that, and you're going to reuse the factory 13mm bolts that held the factory tire carrier on. So again, remember, when you take them off, don't discard those bolts. Okay, we'll go ahead and get that done. We'll get right back with you. All right guys, welcome back. We've got the hinges on, and now we went ahead and put the plate on the tailgate. Again, it's the 13mm bolts. Note the orientation of the tailgate of the bracket. So the long, tall ones are on the top, and the short little 2 tabs are down low on the driver's side. So that's the orientation you need to keep in mind when you put this together. All right, so we're gonna move over here where Kevin's at. He's been working on putting the bushings in, the actual carriers are gonna go inside the hinges. These are really tight fitting bushings, so you wanna make sure that you put a little grease on them when you slide them together, that way you don't damage them. A nice sand hammer or rubber hammer, something like that goes a long way. So I'm gonna show you guys how I do it. It's really simple. The bushings are gonna come in the kit in that plastic wrapper, so you just take them out, and it'll separate, so you have 2 bushing halves and a sealed inner bushing. So I'm just gonna get some general purpose grease and just a light coat, just lube it up a little bit. And get them started. Again, these are pretty tight fitting, guys, so you make sure you get them started nice and straight. You don't want to kink them up. Start using light little taps, don't go wide open, and just kind of work your way around. Small taps, don't take any great big huge blows at it, because you really don't want it. If you had it sideways or something, you could mar it up. You don't want to do that. All right, so we're going to flip it back over, and I like to just go ahead and slide that bushing steel piece in, and then kind of line it up on the bushing we just put in. Like that right there. And then we're going to do the same thing. Again, small little taps around in a circle just to kind of make sure it goes in nice and straight. All right, cool. Now we've got the bushings installed on the carrier. And go ahead and clean up your excess grease. You know, it's going to push some out, but you know, that's a good step, and just a good way to go about doing it is to, you know, light little taps with a sand hammer or a dead blow hammer, whatever you want to call it. And so a light coat of grease really will keep you from fighting this thing. So the next step, the next bushing is we're going to go back to the tailgate. We're going to install this bushing. So this little bushing is shaped like a lowercase n or something like that, a U or whatever. It's going to slide into the tailgate, okay? And then it has 2 7/16, you know, bolt head size, grade 8 bolts that are going to go in, and leave them loose because you're going to have to adjust it for proper fitment when you're closing the tailgate. So go ahead and get those started and into that bracket. And then we're there. All right, cool. So that piece is in there. It slides up and down for fitment. Anyway, just kind of get it started and get it mounted. The next step is to go ahead and hang the tailgate on the hinges, or hang the carrier on the hinges that we just installed earlier. Go ahead, Kevin, grab the thing up. Let's throw it on the Jeep. All right, guys, we've got the carrier and the hinges. It's really a tight fit, so take your time with it. You know, again, we'll sand hammer, maybe, you know, a rubber mallet or something like that, kind of help you bump it in. Again, remember that these tolerances are really tight in all these hinges and stuff like that. So when you coat it, consider that. The next step is we're going to install the bolts that actually hold the carrier in the hinges, and these are a cam bolt. They actually have a cam fitting on them. So what that does is this little tab on the top of the hinge pushes against this offset cam lock or cam fitting, and it allows you to adjust how the tailgate sits on the back of the Jeep. So we're going to just line our hole, get that down in there, washer and nut on the bottom. So right now we're just going to leave everything nice and loose, and then as we get closer to completion, we'll start tightening everything up, and then we'll make adjustments, and I'll show you how the cam bolt actually works. But I wanted you guys to see how that goes on as you put the carrier together. All right, thanks. We'll be back with you in just a minute. Okay guys, we went ahead and installed the heim that tethers the carrier to the tailgate. There's a few spacers, bolt, 2 washers and a nut for each side. And I just want to show you how this sets up. So this is going to go inside of the bracket over here. So spacer on the inside of the heim, and then through the holes on the tabs, and then your washer and your nut. So I'll go ahead and show you guys how to do that. You can put directionally, it doesn't really matter, however you want to set the bolts up. I find it easier to put the spacer in, to come up with the bolt from the bottom, and set the heim on top. So we've got one spacer done. And I'm going to hold that other spacer, and then I'm just going to slide it up, and there we go. And then washer and nut. You can do that either direction, it doesn't matter. I just find it easier to come up from the bottom and start the spacer and then push the heim and then put the other spacer on top. Okay, now setting the distance on the heim is another thing that you need to be concerned with. If it's too loose, when it's closed, it'll rattle like that. So the way you do that is you do a couple of test fittings without putting those spacers in. So lean on the carrier and adjust the heim so you can just get the bolt through it. Because if you don't, you'll have this and you'll have this bump or this rattling noise going on as you're going down the road. You don't want that. So when the tailgate is completely shut, the carrier should be pushing all the way up against that bushing that we put on the plate that's on the tailgate. So there's none of this bump. So we'll make a few adjustments and get that squared away, and then we'll move on to the next process. Okay guys, we went ahead and made our adjustments to the heim so we don't have any rattle, so it's nice and tight when the door's completely closed. The next step will be to install the bracket that holds the tire and wheel assembly together. So there's 4 3/8 grade 8 bolts that are 9/16 bolt head size, so we need a 9/16 socket, 9/16 wrench. So we'll go ahead and get those started. It's nice that Crawler Conceptz sends out grade 8 hardware with their components because there's such a strength difference between grade 5 and grade 8. And, you know, it's nice to have, and they're zinc coated too, so they won't corrode as fast as just a regular old grade 2, sort of galvanized or something like that. Anyway, we've got all those done. We'll go ahead and zip those down. Again, guys, the carrier's slotted, so you can set this for whatever tire height you want. You want your tire to kind of sit flush and nice and tight inside the bumper, or if you have one of our bumpers or whatever, but it is adjustable height-wise. So we'll go ahead and let Kevin zip those down. And, so we're leaving everything kind of loose until we get everything on, and we'll come back and tighten the entire system up to make sure that we've got everything dialed in just like we want it. All right, so the next step is we're going to have to set the spare tire bracket, or the bracket that mounts to this piece. We need to set the lug pattern for the wheels pattern that we're running. So we'll get that ready and we'll be right back with you. All right guys, we're going to go ahead and pull the lug studs tight to the bracket. We've got what holes we want. So I'm going to just kind of give these a little love tap, and then I'm going to pull them down with an impact, and it'll pull it right into that bracket. You can, if you don't have an impact, you can drive them all the way in. It's just a little easier if you have an impact. All right, guys, moving on to the next step is to mount the part that bolts to the wheel to the carrier. All right, this is a really cool part, and it's extremely strong. If you look at it, it looks like a regular piece of angle, but if you see that there's 2 more bends on each that make kind of a W, so that's 3 points of load bearing that is shared across this bracket. So it's extremely strong. There's a video of me out there jumping up and down on mine, and I've got a 40-inch Nitto and ATX slab on it. The design here is really strong. It also offers another really cool feature. So it sits on, it's got 2 3/8 grade 8 bolts that just kind of hold the system together. They really don't hold any weight, they just hold it together. But say you're driving and you've got your spare tire out here and you're wheeling or whatever, and you fall off the ledge and your tire catches. It's actually designed so this piece will lift and give versus the brackets and the hinges and the body panels on the back of the Jeep. If this breaks, it's a lot less expensive to replace this piece than it is to replace the tub or try to do this body panel work and all this stuff. The back of the Jeep is really strong, especially the passenger side. There's 3 or 4 layers of body panel plus a plate that when you screw the hinges through, those screws go through those plates and it pulls it all really tight. There's some rolls and stuff, and there's actually a little bit of boxing that Jeep does. So this part of the Jeep is actually really strong, but just in case it's the weight of the Jeep falls and catches the tire, this is designed to lift. Now it won't lift or bounce as you're going down the road. It takes a significant amount of pressure to get it moving, but it's less pressure than it would to cause damage to the body of the Jeep. So really cool feature, and it's really thought out well. So we'll go ahead and get this mounted, and we'll get the wheel on there, and then we'll move on to the next step. Thanks, guys. We're almost done with the installation of the Crawler Conceptz body mount JK tire carrier. So the last thing we did was install the wheel onto the bracket that's mounted to the tire carrier. When you do that, you want to make sure that somebody's putting constant pressure, pushing the tire against the carrier. So the door's closed, you got somebody over here pushing pressure on the tire so that you maintain positive contact with the tire carrier and the tire. That keeps it from rattling and wiggling. It just strengthens the whole system up. So have somebody push on it while you tighten the 2 bolts on the bracket together. And again, it's slotted so you can slide that in and out for different wheel back spacing. So it works with mine are 3.5 inches of back spacing on my ATA slab. So it's got a lot of adjustment in it, so it's really cool. But the last thing to do to get this thing installed is a license plate relocation bracket. So if you want to run it, you can. If you don't, you don't. If you're running corners and you want to be able to mount your license plate in your tire, there you go, bam. It just pops right in there, comes with some little nuts and grade 8 bolts, and there you go, and you mount your tag on it. You can pick up a 3rd brake light, license plate light offline, pretty cheap. So anyway, it's really cool. I'm running that on my Jeep and I like it a lot. So the entire assembly's been put together, and the next and last video we're going to do is I'm just going to show you guys how to make some adjustments and tighten this thing all up so you get it buttoned up and you're ready to run down the road. Alright, thanks guys, be with you in a minute. As we finish the installation of this body mount tire carrier, the last thing you really want to do is just go around and make adjustments. The cam bolt system that are on the hinges is pretty cool. So what you'll do is tighten the bolts up and then back them off, and then you'll take a 3/4 wrench and you'll be able to lift, pull, or push the carrier. I don't know if you can see it moving or not, but so very cool system. And then once you get it all set, play around with your adjustments. If you've got to make a few more adjustments to your little hinge system or to the cam bolts or whatever, just go back through it, make sure you got everything nice and tight. Again, on the hinge brackets, when you bolt the hinges to the body, use a little blue Loctite, little medium grade Loctite. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward installation. I hope the video helped. With this particular body mount tire carrier, we offer a high lift jack mount, which is really cool, and it comes up and it runs your high lift jack from the back of the Jeep. So really cool system. Again, thank you guys so much for your support, and we look forward to seeing you guys out there.